and I am also getting too old to get down in the gravel and change it myself. I belong to RATQ. I suggest you belong to something that does that for you. They very nicely set a tow truck along. The little indicator came up on the dash saying your tyre pressure is going down, zip, 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 to basically nothing because it's ripped a hole in it. Just be aware, once you get outside Brisbane and the Gold Coast and the Sunshine Coast, people don't see Teslas very much out there. We had to talk to the guy about how to put it on the tow truck. Nigella had to actually get it off the tow truck for him. She's better at backing than I am, so she did that. I had to work with the mechanic to work out how to get the cap off, and also how to jack it up. Okay? Be aware these issues, I think they might still be out there. Now, Luke would probably know better than I do, there's little lugs you can buy that they use to jack them up with.
Yeah, so, yeah, there are little, so read the manual.
Linda, where are you, Linda? He said read the manual.
But on the car on the screen in service, there is a towing button there. We didn't really get into it, but it is about towing the car rather than towing with the car. It will put it in a mode where the hand park brake won't come on automatically so that they can drag it up with the cable without skidding along the road. It just generally lets you roll the car, and also has a little picture there in the manual of where to lift it. So if you're going to use a trolley jack or take it to a tyre shop, where they should lift it. If they lift it off the battery, you're going to have a very inconvenient day, and they're going to have a very expensive day because it will need a new battery. There's little edges along the sills of the car. There are little holes just under here, and if you feel them, there's little, like about 20mm hole. That hole and the little surround around it is the only point where you're meant to lift the car. And there's 4 of those, one sort of just inside each wheel on the sill. You'll see places talk about having little pucks that you can push into that, and they're sort of handy from a locating point of view. You can you put that little thing, it's sort of friction fit into that hole and gives you a nice little rubber pad to lift the car on. They're not necessary. If you've got a jack with a rubber pad on it, you just need to line up that pad with where that circle is. You know, put it evenly around where the circle is cut in the sill and lift the car at that point. That's fine. You don't need the pucks to do it. And you'll often find, the first few times I went to a tyre shop, I've got aftermarket wheels on mine. I've had a couple of different sets of aftermarket wheels. I've been to tyre shops a few times. I've had a couple of flats and things. Done a lot of driving. And inevitably the pucks don't fit, like the swing arms on the jacks don't go low enough to fit under because the car's fairly low as well. I've got a Model 3, so it's much lower than this. And you add the height of the puck to that, and those little jacks just can't get under there. But if you put the jack and this rubber pad right where that hole is, it's fine. Don't worry about it.
Basically,
read the manual, don't worry about it.
Yeah, but basically when you take it in to get it fixed, be aware some people in areas outside Brisbane will not have seen a Tesla before, and they'll be a little bit nervous, but they'll work it out. So where we went, they worked it out, they jacked the car up, they didn't cause any damage, and we had a new tyre put on, no problems at all. It doesn't take the pressure off. Yep.
In the early days, I certainly would print out the page of the manual about lifting the car and leave it on the dash of the car and then talk to them about it, because I owned one of the first Model 3s in Brisbane, so it was early days even in the city, but and still in the country, if you're stuck somewhere, I would definitely get the manual out on your phone, go to the page about lifting the car and say, make sure you do this or it will cost you a lot of money, please, thank you.
Yeah. And without further ado, we have the fully charged Aaron Blockfield. All yours. Woo, big cheers.
Charging. It's not very important, is it? So I guess the first thing is to talk about when you first get your car. I mean, there's people in here that have already got charging options, that have already got their car. How many of you have already got something like that installed? Pretty much nearly everyone. All right, well that's all right. So everyone's probably downloaded apps for ChargeBox and EV and all these other companies. So you probably don't need to talk about DC too much, but maybe for the newer ones, it's pretty critical to understand, because I don't know about you guys, but when I first got my car, it was a bit daunting. It was like, where do I charge? How do I do it? Do I put it in first? Do I pull the app out? There's all these little variables, and you sort of learn that along the way, but no one really coaches you, so you're sort of trying to find that information. But I think most of us already been down this track, and we already kind of understand how that works. Unless you want to, put your hand up and you want me to talk about that as we're moving forward, I'm happy to, answer questions and we'll get stuck into that.
Just with the amount of apps out there, I just saw on the Facebook page, there are literally 20. So all the most critical ones in South East Queensland, obviously ChargeFox, but what else? What if you had to pick like 3 charging apps, 3 third-party?
Yeah, the main ones is obviously ChargeFox.
I think you hold them up, yeah.
The main ones is ChargeFox. EV is a bigger one as well. But we're seeing more.
Which we will put on, we will hand out to this event for you.
But there's more popping up, isn't there? Like Airpol's getting and BP's doing the same. I think I've seen just recently 7-Eleven is looking at doing something as well. So they're all engaging in this future of EV charging. Maybe they're seeing exactly what we're looking at, and maybe there's money to be made in this as well. So are they going to start taking away petrol houses and then start replacing them? Who knows? I mean, maybe that's what they need to be doing, because the growth of EVs, it's growing at rapid rates, isn't it? But yeah, but to be honest with you, the app side of it is a bit of a pain. Like you just need so many apps now. Wouldn't it be nice to have one app that integrated all of them?
And I think that's probably coming. We were in Europe at Christmas and we rented an EV while we were up there. Could not find or afford a Tesla, so we went with someone else. That's another story. And there are literally dozens of different brands of EV chargers, DC chargers up there. But what has become very common in these markets is network apps. So there'll be an organisation that goes, right, you just download our app, you get our RFID card, and that will give you access to this dozen different charger types. And I don't think we're probably too far away from seeing things like that come in Australia. Unfortunately, in the meantime, you're going to have a pile of apps on your phone. I would suggest that if you're planning on doing a long trip outside of Southeast Queensland, and you know you're going to be needing third-party chargers on that route, have you look at your route on a Better Route Planner or whoever, see what the charges are along there, and just make sure you've got the apps set up before you go.
The Tesla network is just so good, isn't it? Like
on the coast, if you go inland a little bit, you're much more reliant on third parties.
Yeah, but I like you can turn up, you can just plug it in, you get quick speeds, it's reliable, they're always working. You look at half of these other brands out there and they're sitting dormant, they're broken. PlugShare is good because you can all see straight away whether it's working or not. But it's just when you need a quick top up and you haven't checked PlugShare to see if it was available, you turn up and it's broken, and then you're kind of looking for the next one.
Most third-party chargers will have a QR code on the side if you need to download it to use it. We stayed at accommodation in Noosa and I thought, I have to download this. But I plugged the car in first before I downloaded it, and it started working without needing to do it. So sometimes it's handy to try that first, and then if it needs it, it'll tell you. This was a free one, so it didn't need me to sign into anything.
Yeah, so it's DC, and we're all going to need DC fast charging. It's critical. The more that we're moving around, the more we're travelling, the more we're enjoying our cars, the more we want to travel. So we just need to be aware of where those stations are, and then what apps that we need. You'd think in the future maybe apps might become like obsolete. Maybe if technology or software evolves, that maybe we could just walk up like a petrol pump and scan a credit card and then plug it in. That'll take away heaps of different steps, and I think that's probably the future. But for now, it's just clunky, but we need it.
So anything 30 different apps
Is that right? That's crazy, isn't it? It's crazy.
I think Tesla have now opened the supercharger network to other EVs. You just have to create.
Only
a
some of
Tesla
them,
account.
not all of them.
Yeah, all the ones in New South Wales. There are 2 destination chargers in Queensland that you can charge, you can pay for it through the Tesla app. There's some at the PA Hospital and at Lone Pine Koala Sanctuary. They've got paid destination chargers now. So you need a Tesla account, and there's a, if you plug a Tesla in, they just recognise it and bill it back to your Tesla account. If you don't have a Tesla, then you scan a QR code from, you need a Tesla account, so you sign up at tesla.com for an account, same as you do before you bought your car, and put your credit card details into that Tesla account, scan a QR code with the app. In the menu, there's a charge your non-Tesla option. You can see that on your app now if you like. You click on your face menu, there's an option in there to charge your non-Tesla. And they'll get billed back to your Tesla account. And the superchargers in New South Wales are the same thing.
Okay, so it's only in New South Wales or everywhere?
Yeah, so it's part of the funding agreement they've had with the New South Wales government. There's a requirement they open their network up. It's part of that funding that they got to expand their network with some government funding.
I was just showing my next door neighbour, she's just bought herself an MG, but she's from Sydney, so she's planning to do a lot of
Yeah, absolutely. And every day of the week, I'll talk about trips after this, but yeah, every day of the week use a supercharger if you can.
Yeah, I mean, DC fast charging is there for us all to use, but to be honest with you, it should be just for travel. But the thing is that there's apartments that don't allow, EV charging. So all these people want to get into an EV, but the problem is they've got no means of charging up. Like I guess from a home perspective or whatever, we're quite lucky that we've got so many different options of charging devices that we can use. That those that are in an apartment type scenario, it's unfortunate they just don't have any options. But in saying that, I think what was the date we were talking about for 1st of October is when all apartments moving forward have to have allowance for EV charging. So that'll be better. It'll take away from the strain of DC fast charging. We need DC fast charging to be there for travel purposes, not for everyday charging use.
Is that for new builds after 1st of October or existing buildings?
No, new builds. Yeah.
Even be new approvals, not they wouldn't be changing the designs and pre-approved, but any approvals from October onwards would need that. Yeah.
But if you're approaching your body corporate and they're resistant, that will hopefully make your argument a little bit better.
Well, I'm going to go buy one of the ones that does.
Yeah.
So,
Exactly. Yeah. So it's going to add value, isn't it, to your apartment if there's options available for charging.
It's going to sound a stupid question, but what is DC charging? Like, is that different to what we're plugging into at home?
Yeah, so DC fast charging is it bypass the onboard charger in the car, and so the charger actually goes straight into the actual battery that's located in the car.
So the battery's DC.
Yes.
Yes, grid power's AC, the battery runs on DC, you need to convert that AC to DC somehow.
Okay, yeah, I understand.
The charger that's in the car is as big as a lunchbox, so it's only capable of about 11 kilowatts of power throughput, whereas a DC fast charger like a supercharger can do 250 kilowatts and has this big pillar full of equipment to do that, right? So they can't build that AC conversion capacity to the car because you wouldn't have any luggage space left.
Thank you.
And that one there, is that a DC?
Oh, this one? Yeah.
These are DC chargers out here.
Yeah, they're
So
the
most
DC.
of these are DC chargers. And you can see the bigger ones are bigger. Tesla superchargers, the interesting part of Tesla superchargers is actually the big grey box that you probably haven't noticed that's behind them. That's where all the interesting stuff happens. The bit that you see parked in your car next to is just
a head.
a connector.
So what is that one there?
So these are home. There's multiple different styles of home chargers. This is what Tesla provide, and to be honest with you, it's a very good unit, and for the price, it's very reasonable as
So
well.
is that an AC then?
AC.
Oh,
Yep. It's not actually a charger. It's actually just a power supply.
And the naming of it, It's a wall connector, it's
Yeah.
not a charger.
Yeah,
It
it's not-
connects your car to the wall.
Yeah, the charger is actually in the car. Yeah, so, yeah,
We call it any better.
yeah.
Yeah. So,
Were you going to start with UMCs now?
Yeah, I was just going to talk about all this, all the different styles here, but obviously, you know, this is probably the safest method, and it's very reasonable, and it's, you know, good quality. There's other styles of home chargers. There's ones that optimise your solar, so you can utilise or redirect your solar into your car and select a couple of different modes, which will allow just what you're producing from your roof to go straight to the car. This is just a flat line, so it's like looking at a graph. If you were doing solar charging, the graph would be up and down and moving in different directions because we've got cloud or we've got, you know, all the variables that happen throughout the day. The solar chargers will track the way that the sun is producing the energy, whereas these ones, it's just a flat line. So you know, you're going to pick up some solar, but essentially you're probably looking at grid and solar throughout the day. But I mean, for the money, it's a fantastic product. There's other methods as well. If this is still, you know, out of your budget or whatever, there's other methods like sockets. You know, these are 32 amp sockets which you can use on the wall with just using your portable charger, because you will get some sort of, we're still going to get portable chargers, aren't we?
at the moment,
Yeah.
today, we do.
Yeah.
They threaten to take them out occasionally.
Yeah.
And then you get your car and you've still got one.
That's right.
A bit of poor comms from Tesla on whether they're included today or not.
So that's the portable charger, and it has
Mobile connector.
a mobile connector or UMC, or but it still has a little button on it, so you can open up the charge port flap. And then these devices are quite adaptable, so you can take off. That's the 10 amp, which is the smaller earth pin, but these can actually be interchangeable, so you can take them. Oh, geez, how did that?
Hit it with a steel ball, Aaron.
So they,
And what do you put in there instead?
so yeah, there's a 15 that comes with those.
You get two.
Yep. Absolutely. Or you can put in something a bit more substantial as well and go up to a higher ampage, which will give you the same speeds as these ones. And, you know, depending on single phase or three phase, most people are single phase, which is 7 kilowatt. That can go up to the same speed as that. So, and that'll just pop straight in there. And then, you know, you can see the size of the cable, how thick that is compared to the 10 amp.
So, Aaron, was that, you know, the connectors you have at caravan parks, council fairgrounds and that?
Yep.
Is that the one you plug into those?
Yeah, well, this is the UK version, that head.
The blue
But,
one?
yeah, but you can get ones with that style. We've probably
Right.
all seen these before. That's the standard sort of 5-pin Australian version.
But that doesn't plug straight into your tail of your Tesla thing, does it?
Yeah, it would.
You
Yeah,
can buy, you can
yeah.
buy those with that end on it.
So your UMC, this thing here, will come with most of the cars. And it comes with 2 of these. One plugs into a normal power point, your normal 240 volt power point that runs everything in your house, and that's a 10 amp lead, which will give you about
Oh,
10 to 15 k's an hour charging.
Yep.
The other one that comes with it looks very similar, but if you look closely, that bottom pin is much thicker, and that's a 15 amp tail. Plugs into there just the same. You can have a power point change to being a 15 amp power point, and with using that you get about 20 to 25 k's an hour
And then,
charging.
if they've got a dryer in their laundry,
Yeah.
it will run off that power. So if you've
So
got
you may
got
already
a dryer,
have
you've
some
already
15
got one of
amp
those
outlets,
powers.
just check. Now, that's what comes with it.
So
from some-
caravan parks, 15 amp outlets at caravan parks,
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah.
It is a common outlet in an
So there
Australian
are-
caravan park.
There's a few third-party places where you can buy fatter faster versions that will plug in and work in your UNC. So you can get the 32 amp 3-pin, which is single phase, or the 32 amp 5-pin, which is 3-phase. Both of them give you about 70 k's per hour charging.
Or maybe a little bit less, but the way I view everything is through sports. I always look at different analogies through sport, but if you were talking about the difference between DC fast charging, these, and then maybe that, we'd be looking at T20 being the DC fast charger. We'd be looking at one-day cricket with this one or that one, and then we might be looking at test cricket. But either way, we still get a result, right? In most cases, unless it rains.
So the 10 amp outlet could push 2 days to charge your car
From empty. But remember that your average,
Yeah.
your average urban commute is between sort of 40 and 70 k's a day. This is going to recharge most of that overnight without any dramas at all.
Yeah.
So if you're not doing more than 70 odd k's, 70 to 100 k's a day, that's going to probably do you.
I've been living in an apartment, like I have had a wall connector at my last house. I've been living in a new townhouse for the last 4 months, charging off a 10 amp outlet. I do a lot of driving and it's been fine. Some days I leave and it's not full, but it's got more than enough to get me through the next day. And the next couple of nights of plugging it in each night, it gets back up to full, fine.
I did it with my Nissan Leaf, and I think I used a 10 amp socket for a number of years, and I think I put on like what was it, 170 a night or whatever, so which was fine. It was only a small battery, the Nissan Leaf.
Obviously, if you're renting and your landlord doesn't want you attaching extra things in your garage, there's a good chance you're going to be able to manage with what comes with the car in a normal PowerPoint. So don't freak out.
Yeah. So, and then, this is just an adapter really, so you can plug that into that, and then as we were talking about before, with the 5-pin sockets, if you're travelling and you went to caravan parks, then I've got an option as well to adapt to that in there. And then I think it's critical to have some leads in the car, I really do. Yeah, let's get it. Yeah, thank you. Type 2 to Type 2 leads. Yeah. Type 2 to Type 2 leads, I think, are critical. The more we're moving forward into this destination level 2 type charges, which are these ones, what's happening is I think the leads on these in a commercial setting are getting destroyed. People don't really care about them. They're laying there, they're on the ground, people running over them, and not really winding them up and putting them away. So I think what's going to happen is eventually they'll do away with the tethered version and they'll have sockets, and then you bring your lead and then you protect and look after your lead. I think that's the way that we'll see it in the future, and I think UK and a few of the other countries are adopting that sort of style of method as well. So these will become more prevalent, and we'll all have to have one of these available for travel purposes.
Where do you get one of those from now if you've got a Tesla?
Shop.there's a lot of them.
You can buy them from Tesla, but there's quite a few different third-party places.
Yeah.
Just double check the capacity on them
Yeah.
and the length of your
They sell
cable.
them at Bunnings, but they sell really low capacity ones. You want to buy a 22 kilowatt one.
Yeah.
Don't buy anything less than 22 kilowatts. For a bunch of mass and electrical reasons, the slower ones, they're a limiting factor. They're like, if you buy a 4 kilowatt one, that's the fastest you'll ever charge, and there are plenty of outlets that are faster than that. If you buy a 22 kilowatt one, you'll get as much as you could possibly get out of whatever socket you're plugging into. So there's no reason to check it out.
And they tend to sort of start at about 5 metres length. You can get 7 metre length ones. If you've seen all the posts about chargers being iced, 7 metre length one can sometimes mean that you can park a couple of spots down
And run the lead
still
on the top.
reach that baby
Yeah.
with your cable.
Yeah.
So it might be a little bit more to purchase a 7 metre one,
Yeah.
but you might find yourself less stuck.
And that cannot be used as an extension.
No,
By
no,
design.
no.
It's a safety feature.
Yeah.
By design.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When it's plugged in, do you need to be nearby with your key to be able to unplug it, or? if it's-
Yeah, use it. When the car's locked and the charger's locked, there's a little eyelet in them, and it drops a pin into it and locks it in both ends, so it can't be stolen.
Yeah. So you
Yeah,
can't
you
take it
unlock
out
the car
until
to
you've
get-
turned your
to get it out.
charging off on your app and hit the unlock
Yeah.
charger.
I know, it's
That then releases it.
just send a little bit and say I wouldn't buy one. I don't think they're particularly necessary, particularly if you can charge at home. Unless you've got a particular situation where you can regularly use one and think you'll regularly need one, I wouldn't spend the money on it.
If
You have to
you
put a
units.
lot of electricity through it to make back the $300 you buy on that cable. But if you're travelling in regional Queensland particularly, every charging station, I'm getting into my talk a bit I guess, but every charging station in regional Queensland has one DC charger and two AC outlets that you need one of these cables for. If you travel north and west through Queensland, you should buy one. If you don't leave Brisbane, you'll never use it, it'll be a waste of money. And if you only occasionally travel into regional Queensland, once every year or two,
You can borrow one from us.
borrow one from
Yeah, well,
the
that's right.
Tesla
So,
shop.
yeah,
So
exactly.
they're free for loan. You
Yeah.
just send us a message through the website. There's a loan adapter page. Fill out the form, say when you want it, where you need to pick it up from, and we'll send it out to you for free. So don't buy them.
Yeah. So, but for those that live in units, if there's no charging options, those destination chargers that you see in shopping centres or whatnot, they'll end up becoming a socket version, and this might be essential because you'll be pulling into that shopping centre. We just set up 8 chargers in Hope Island, and in there's 8 devices, and they're all socket type. I think they're socket. I'll have to double check. Oh no, I can't remember.
Don't look at me, man.
Anyway, but for those units in that vicinity don't have options, so those devices that we've installed are going to become quite.
Yeah, if you live there and have a use case, buy
Yeah,
one. Absolutely.
yeah,
But don't.
yeah.
So many people rush into buying all of these random accessories for their car and don't use them. It's a waste of money.
And that's why, your
No, it's really
UMC
good.
will let you plug into a normal power point. You're going to get home with your new car and be able to charge it in your garage, right? So just pause, take a few breaths, live with your car for a little while, and then work out what extra things you're going to need. Do you need one of these because you travel long distances and charging at home isn't going to cover it for you? Or you're moving into an apartment where you need to go out and use this stuff? If you're only going to do an occasional trip, borrow one off us. That's a really good part of your TOCA membership benefits. So just breathe, take a little moment, take some time to get to know your car and how you use it and what you need from it before you start, as Luke says, investing a shit ton of money in a bunch of stuff that you may not need, may not be necessary for you.
We obviously will do more events. We will be doing an event in Stone and Wood in Byron Bay, and we put four sockets in there. So if we're all going down there, there's going to be 4 options to charge, but we will need that lead unless we can share one or something, or how we do it. But
I've found that places where I have stopped, especially motels, that have them, they usually have a cable you can borrow.
On site,
Always double check those things. If you're booking into a motel and they say they've got a charger, give them a call to find out what the setup is. Just in case you get there and it's like, oh my God, I need the lead. It's only got a socket. Because you don't want to find yourself stuck somewhere expecting to be able to charge and not have it. So you do need to plan a little bit in ahead of your long trips and be a little bit more conscious about what you're doing. That's not a bad thing anyway, to be a little bit more organised. For those of you that fly by the seat of your pants, you may want to buy all the extra gadgets so that you've got them if you need them.
And then I don't know, is there too many Type 1 connectors out there still?
So there are. My philosophy.
Oh, is that right? Yeah. Is that the charge?
And if you really need to charge at Arndale Shopping Centre, then buy one, I suppose. But what you should be doing is writing a letter saying, why are you investing in 1990s technology?
Exactly.
Please get this crap upgraded. Because it's no new cars ship with that connector on them anymore.
That's right.
It's a bygone era.
So it's a
Type 1
1.
connector,
So
just an earlier type of connector. A Nissan Leaf came with that connector. They just don't exist in Australia anymore. They're just
So what's a type 2?
Type 2
Everything
is
else.
Everything else.
So
a Model 3 has that connector on it. That's type 2, and that's what every car in Australia
That's
has
the
or
type
otherwise
2.
has on it.
So it's
And
a
that's
few
type
pins
1.
on it, and so it's a smaller.
A little bit of interesting history is that the regulations for the funding for ARENA to fund all these charges together were written in 2017. In 2017, most of the electric cars on the road were Nissan Leafs with a Chatamo. So you'll find that Ampol and BP have put in about 4 sample charges, and are now doing reports on that to say, oh golly gosh, no one's using the Chatamo size of the charger. But under ARENA funding, they were funded to put one of each in. So when you pull into BP, one is this, and the other one is for a Nissan Leaf, which you don't have. So the regulations are 6 years behind what's happening in reality on the roads. So Ampol has just produced a report, and they're hassling the federal government at the moment about changing the funding model so they can put in 2 type 2s instead of 1. So the reality will be behind, what's being provided through government funding will probably be 5 years behind what's actually on the road for at least the next decade.
I was talking about Fully Charged, I was talking to a rep from EV, and apparently that's done.
They've sorted that?
So what we're talking about type 1 and type 2, which is AC sockets. There's also a similar situation with DC sockets, which is between CCS2 and Chatamo.
I'm talking about DC, not...
So just getting two things conflated a little bit, but similar problem. So Nissan Leaf comes with Chatamo and type 1. Model 3 comes with type 2/CCS. It uses one connector for both things, basically. The new ARENA funding does allow stations to only have type 2, CCS. The ones that are built at the moment. And EV told me that 0.4% of charging events from Chatamo. And rapidly declining. As all those, like Nissan hasn't actually shipped a Nissan Leaf in Australia in 2 or 3 years now. I think they still have them on the books, but realistically, they're like a special order kind of thing. Lexus, I think, is the only car that you can still buy today that's got buy from a showroom that's got a Chatamo connector, and I think they sell about 3 of those a year. So it's not part of the market that matters. And they're all, and new Toyotas and like a new BX, Toyota BX4, that when maybe comes out in the market, it'll all be CCS as well, CCS and type 2. So yeah, Chatamo and type 1 are there. Complain about them if you see them is the solution.
The other app and thing is the Charge Fox, which has a J7072. You can get that adapter will fit in, but they've got Charge Fox.
You can Google how to connect to
There's a couple of Charge Point. There's one at
Charge Point.
Carindale,
Cleveland.
Pacific Fair.
Cleveland's got a couple of them.
Yeah, and they're all abandoned. Charge Point hasn't operated in Australia in like 5 years.
So
service to offer confusion.
I'm going to probably wrap it up now. I know there's some questions on here that I've been asked to answer about preconditioning. Well, preconditioning is a setting that you can, hit before you get to that DC fast charger. So if you're travelling and you want to get that battery warmed up so that it accepts the speed, then you can. Well, actually, you just put it in the navigation, don't you, and it automatically starts to.
Does it for you.
Yeah, that's right. So, providing you've gone with the Tesla network. So yeah, it'll do all that for you. There's another one on there about towing. So if you did run out of juice while you're out and about, do RSEQ or someone come and get you, or yes, there is options there. Do they have generators or?
battery chargers on them.
On them as well,
I've
yeah.
actually had them for about 3 or 4 years.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think
it's
there's,
a promo gear with my promo photos with my car about 3 years ago. That on one of their charging flatbeds. So the flatbed's got an AC charger inverter set up under the tray.
and
And
this,
this guy shot up just with his mobile little trucking thing,
Yeah,
and he just lifted up the flap, and there was a row of batteries in there. They give you enough charge to get to where you're not going to travel Adelaide
Yeah.
just to get that charge.
yeah, it's just comfort, yeah. But there's a business model out there where you can pay a subscription for the year, and he'll come and sort you out as well, if you were kind of worried about that sort of stuff. What else? Was there any other questions?
I was just trying to get a better understanding of going back to the original connection that you've got and the normal one that goes into your power plant.
Yeah.
Now you can take that out and you can put in the one that goes
Yes.
a little faster.
Yes.
But it can only go into a socket that
It's suitable.
Yeah.
is suitable.
Yes.
And that, so what makes them suitable? If you've got a
because
a dryer, so you'd have to get it, you'd have to get it.
Get a
put
sparking
in
to
like-
install.
Yeah, you need
There'll
someone
be
that,
very, very few houses, I'm sparking. There'll be
Yeah.
very, very few houses that have got a 50.
So why would that,
Yeah.
why would a dryer, if you had a dryer?
It would-
I think
it certainly
commercial
would be the
dryers
dryer in my house.
And in America, their dryers run on like what we call three-phase power, so that's why
So I
they
can
talk
get
about the dry, it
an
fitting the dryer.
electrician to install
If you've got an
my
older
wall
house.
and put it into another one of
That's
those.
But if you've got an older house, I've got an older house, I have 2 of these in my house
Okay.
that were put in by someone who owned it 50 years ago.
Lightweight somebody did a bit of hobby welding.
Yeah,
So
well,
they're common enough for welding or something like that.
Well, our house was owned by a plumber.
Running a lathe.
Yeah,
Yeah,
so
so
we've got-
he would have had a
And
welder.
I put in the one that came from Tesla
Yeah,
and spent $700 on an electrician to put it in,
yeah.
and then discovered I had a,
You had a.
I didn't need it. I can just run it off that socket. So have a look at what you've got.
15 watts socket.
And
Yeah.
it has the big thick earth,
The bottom hole is long.
yeah, the bottom hole is long, yeah.
but the other thing is, don't use these, don't use extension leads, because there's so much heat that's generated through these, and it's a constant ampage that is flowing through these, and the size of the cable that's actually running in an extension lead is far less than what the house is actually capable of. So you just don't want to be using those. I've seen these things heat up very, a lot. So it's to the point where you can't even touch them. That's how hot they get.
Even, is that a 15 amp cable too?
This one is, yeah.
So-
So that's a 10. Yeah.
It's not just.
What if, I'm sorry,
Yeah.
say I go to my friend's place and they haven't got wall chargers
Anything,
and I just want to use their electricity.
Yeah.
I recently bought a 15 amp cable.
Yeah.
Will it be, can I use that on it?
No, it's still the same.
You use the
I
same?
mean, it'll work and you'll get away with it, but okay, so I'll explain why. The main reason isn't about its rating or it melting or anything like that. And what it's about is that this unit is very well engineered from Tesla and has a temperature sensor in it.
Oh, okay.
So it measures the temperature at the plug. So it means, there's a bunch of factors in, there's a bunch of things that could go wrong when you're charging the car, and electrical faults is a main part of it, and most of those electrical faults happen in the socket. Socket's been in your house for 15 years, it's been wet, it's full of dirt, and all that sort of stuff. Plug this in, current comes through it, it's got a bit of resistance in it, it gets hot, the plug detects that heat and turns the car off, or slows the charging down to a level where that heat's not a problem, right?
So extension cable.
You put an extension lead between this and the socket, that socket could literally be on fire inside your house, and this doesn't know any better. So you're defeating a safety feature of the car by using an extension lead.
And
That's the main
you
point.
get a voltage drop.
And when you go to your friends,
It will turn off for voltage drops as well, but if you're detecting heat and voltage drops, it's double safe,
through
right?
a window or
Yeah,
park
yeah,
in your
that's
garage.
it's not, I thought maybe if we use the cable, it would long.
I mean, there are situations when I've been travelling a lot where I've had to use an extension lead. I would be very careful and so run the car for 10 or 15 minutes, then go pull the plug out, feel if it's hot.
Okay, yeah.
If it's hot, end of the game. But don't just plug it in and walk away from it. Come back, feel all the plugs. If any of the plugs are hot,
don't use them.
And not just a normal extension cord from
Yeah, good
Bunnings or
quality.
Kmart.
Yeah.
If you must use an extension cord, make sure it's one of the at least 15 amp, really good quality, you know, like caravanning, proper, not $15 from Kmart.
Well, the one I
Extension
said, it
cord.
was a 15 amp caravan type,
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
that'd still be all right.
And if you
or not?
must use it, make sure nothing is coiled up, make sure it's fully unwound, you don't want anything sitting on top of itself,
Yeah.
trapping that heat and increasing those risks, and like Luke says, watch it very closely.
Aaron,
I just wondered.
those 15 amp caravan extension leads, they're not really made for constant high load.
Correct, yeah. That's
So,
right.
you know, you
Yeah.
need at least a 2.5
2.5 mil, yeah.
leads inside your.
Absolutely, yeah, these are not even, they're not even a mil thick.
But you're still defeating
Yeah,
that,
yeah.
that
Yes,
sensor.
exactly, yeah.
And
It's
if
too
you
risky.
are going to do it, you can manually wind back within the car the amount of amps.
Mm.
If you really, really must get away with it, it's the only way out.
Yeah, drop the
And if you
amperage.
watch it. But
Yeah,
other than that,
yeah,
you know, what? You drive around somewhere else, charge,
yeah,
you're not going to risk a $100,000 car.
no, that's
And
right,
somebody's $1 million home just for that.
that's right.
So when we're home charging, and just so we're charging overnight, and a storm comes through, is there any concern, like you have the racing disconnected? Or
No, there's so much safety built into the circuitry of the house, and the car itself is very safe as well. So, no, there's no concerns with that. And these can be in the water. They're all, you know, they're rated for outdoors and whatnot.
Terry charged overnight last night on the Gold Coast and it rained the whole time. And he's parked outside and this part of the charger is inside the garage and this cable just runs underneath it and where we live at the moment, that's what we've been doing and it's been no problem.
I was thinking more of, you know, like with the surges and stuff
Oh,
like that.
you could certainly blow up the car, same as it would blow up your TV or whatever, yeah. It's entirely possible. You can get a surge protector put in your main switchboard, like a big surge arrestor put in your switchboard. Or, yeah, unplug it out of an abundance of caution and check your insurance. I mean, you can't counter for every possible problem in life. You get to a point where that's what insurance is for.
If you know what you're meant to be doing to look after it.
Yeah, I wouldn't panic.
Extension, issue of extension, is it for 15 amp only or for 10 amp as well?
Like, you know, the difference is the pin size, but essentially the cable is just as thick. They're both the same in terms of what carrying capacity is available for them. They're just, yeah, they're just not suitable for constant current like that. All right.
Moving on.
Yep.
Okay.